All right, so we get to take a look today at a CZ82. It's chambered in 9x18 or 9mm makerov. This is different than what we normally mean by 9mm in the US. Here in the States, when we say 9mm, really we mean 9x19 or 9mm Luger. A completely different caliber, not compatible at all. The 9mm Makarov, or 9x18, is actually more ballistically similar to a 380 ACP. That's probably the closest competitor or the closest caliber that is really popular here in the States. So a decently powerful cartridge, powerful enough to be a service handgun, which is what this was. Several different countries have used this as their main service handgun, police forces, security forces, and whatnot. CZ82 indicates it was designed in 1982. This particular example was manufactured in 1990. A lot of these have come in just as surplus into the U.S. from military usage, police usage, like I mentioned. And because of that, when we get them, normally there's a lot of finish wear. These have been used for many years. This one in particular would be 31 years old now, made in 1990, and it's seen a lot of use in that 31 years. So finding these in kind of rough shape, so far as the finish condition and whatnot, is pretty common, but from what I've seen, most of them that have come into the U.S., they're still working pretty strong, and a lot of that is because of how simple they are, how well they were made. These things are built like tanks, and they are simple blowback pistols. What that means is there's no cams, there's no rotating barrel, there's fewer moving parts inside. So even over the years and with a lot of rounds through them potentially, they're still going strong. But a simple blowback, what that really means is the only thing holding the action closed, in other words, keeping the slide in place or keeping the round fully in the chamber during the process of firing, is the weight of the slide and the recoil spring. So that's all that's keeping it shut, as opposed to like kind of recoil lug on a rifle, or oftentimes like a rotating barrel or something on certain handguns, or how the Browning action works. Whereas this is a fixed barrel. The barrel doesn't move at all, and the slide is simply held forward by spring tension. So let's take a look really quick at a couple of features that this pistol has that really stick out to me. One is it has an ambidextrous safety. Now, nowadays that's not that rare. It's not out of the ordinary. But remember, this was designed in 1982. That's kind of a cool feature for a pistol from 1982. So you've got the safety back here on the right side and also on the left. Your slide release is not ambidextrous, but obviously if you were shooting this left-handed, you could simply reach up and, say if you had the slide locked back, you could either hit the slide release on the left, or you can just reach up with your right hand and do it manually. So even though that the lever is not ambidextrous, really in function it still is. The magazine release is also ambidextrous. You have it here on the left side like you normally would, but you also have it on the right, and pushing from either direction will release your magazine. Disassembly on this handgun is kind of unique as well. It's actually similar to a Makarov. If you're familiar with that, the magazine does have to be released, or rather removed from the handgun. And then the trigger guard, the front section of the trigger guard, will pull down. So we'll go ahead and do that. You pull that down. Now remember, your barrel's fixed, so it's not going anywhere. The slide will come back and up and slide off the front of the barrel. Slide comes off, recoil spring comes off, and then you're left with the frame and fixed barrel there. There is a kind of neat feature, because the trigger guard, as you pull this down, really you're not pulling it straight down, you're rotating it. So the bottom of the trigger guard here actually gets, or there is a piece on the back of the trigger guard that is pushed into the magazine well. So because of that, when you reassemble the pistol, if you forget to push this back up to lock the slide in place, you cannot insert a magazine because this section on the back of the trigger guard here is pushed into the magazine well still. So it's physically blocking the magazine from being reinserted until you push your trigger guard back up to lock your slide. Okay, so you are looking at a double action, single action here. So with the hammer forward, you can have your double action. After the first round is fired out of a magazine, you would have single action. Here's your reset and single action pull. You can see there's a decent amount of movement in the hammer on that single action pull. And because of that, it's so single action in my opinion. The double action is actually pretty smooth compared to other double actions. It's not a bad trigger pull at all overall. One of the oddities though of the CZ82 is, although it is double action, single action, there is no decocker. So say if you were to take a loaded magazine, put in it, run the slide, and by the way, the slide does lock back on an empty magazine. I'm just holding the slide release down so it doesn't. If you were to load it, put a full magazine in, put one in the chamber, now your hammer's back, there's no control, there's no lever to decock the gun. You would have to do that manually, which in my opinion, if the gun is designed to be used in that way, that's a lot of administrative handling and a higher than necessary chance of a negligent discharge, in my opinion. Another way it could be used, because you do have a safety, is full mag in, chamber around, safety on, and just carry it this way. It's really up to the user in a civilian role. If anybody out there knows how these were intended to be used, or what the process was for when it was used as a military service pistol, or security forces, or police, how they were trained and required to carry these. It's an option. It's an option that they were just taught to leave the chamber empty, have a full magazine, empty chamber, and safety off, hammer down. But if anybody knows how they're supposed to be used, drop that in the comment below and let me know, because I would be curious. I would imagine it may have been similar to a 1911 theory, to where put one in the chamber, hammer back, safety on. That's how you're supposed to carry it. But I really don't know that. It just seems to me like if you're intended to carry it like I normally would, one in the chamber, full magazine, hammer down, I don't like having to do that manually. But anyway, so far I've been very impressed with this example. This, by the way, if you're familiar with the CZ83, the CZ83 is the commercial equivalent to this military surplus, or made to be a military firearm. Whereas these are made with a very good design and good quality, but sometimes a little bit rough finish. The CZ83 was meant to be a commercial gun from the very get-go. So it was offered in other calibers because civilians want options. Military wants simplicity, civilians want options. So the CZ83 was available in more calibers. It typically had a better fit and finish than the CZ82. But the military guns, the 82s, they were just made to work and work well, and they do a good job at that. So anyway, I've done a little bit of shooting with this one. So far, I'm really pleased with it. Don't have a lot of trigger time on it yet, but I'll put some shooting footage on the end of this video. I appreciate y'all coming to hang out with me and see a CZ82, take a look at it. Hope y'all have a great day. Bye. Got the CZ82 today, 9mm makerov. Got it loaded up with Sailor and Bellet 95 grain full metal jacket. These will be the first rounds that I have fired through this pistol. I'm going to shoot at 5 yards. Got 2 targets set up. Going to do some double action on the left target, single action on the right. We'll see. Hopefully it's sighted in decently for this ammunition, and hopefully I can do my part. But I'll let y'all kind of watch the shooting, and then we'll take a look at the targets. Alright, locked open on an empty magazine. Got through the 12 rounds just fine. Nice and smoky. I'm actually really pleased with how this shoots. This is not my first CZ, but it's my first, I guess, vintage CZ. It's my first CZ82 for sure. Let's see, the slide release is kind of hard to use, but it works. One kind of strange thing about this that I didn't consider when I was about to run this drill is that this handgun does not have a decocker. Your controls are simply a safety toward the rear here and your slide release on the front. Now the safety is ambidextrous, which is nice for lefties especially. Your magazine release is down here where it ought to be. And it also is ambidextrous. You can actually push it from either side of the pistol. Either one works just the same. So, seemed to shoot pretty well actually. I was pretty pleased with it. So, let's cut the video here and I'll walk you around and take a look at the targets. Okay, so this is about where I was standing here as I was shooting. What I was doing was I would fire 1 round double action to the left and then transition to the right target, 1 round single action. Then you were seeing me lower the hammer. As I may have mentioned, this does not have a decocker per se like a CZ226 or like a lot of double actions would. Even a Beretta 92 would have a decocker. So to actually decock the handgun, you just have to do it manually by thumb. It's not ideal. But anyway, so I would fire 1 round double action, transition over there, the target, 1 round single action. I've never been particularly good. I'm not a particularly good pistol shot anyway, but I've never been particularly good at shooting double action. So I'm quite pleased with this. You know, that was a full 12 round mag, so that was 6 drills, 6 rounds left, 6 rounds right. I'm very pleased with that. That's my first shot through the pistol, so I mean I really can't complain. Shout out Project Appleseed as well, by the way. But yeah, so as far as the size of these targets, You can kind of see my hand there. That's not bad. I'm pretty pleased with that for 5 yards. But anyway, well, that's about all the shooting I'm going to do with it today. I might do a tabletop review of it and tag that onto this video, but I'll see y'all later.